Chancellor, IILM University, Gurugram. The speaker is Professor M. Pant, who will be joining us online. Former Pro-Vice Chancellor, IGNO, Professor Marmar Mukhopadhyay, former Director, NEPA, and Professor Amar P. Garg, Vice Chancellor, Shobhit University. I request all the dignitaries for today's session to kindly come over to the dais. Now, may I request Dr. Pankaj Mittal ma'am to kindly felicitate our dignitaries on the dais. Professor Ranbir Singh, former President, AIU and Chancellor, IILM University, Gurugram. Professor Marmar Mukhopadhyay, former Director, NEPA. Professor Amar P. Garg, Vice Chancellor, Shobhit University. Before we begin the session, a brief introduction about our dignitaries on the dais. Professor Ranbir Singh, former President of AIU and Chancellor, IILM University, Gurugram. He was the founding Vice Chancellor of National Law University, Delhi, established by Government of India in 2008 and President of AIU. He is working as a legal advisor of the Prime Minister. In a long span of 22 years of Vice Chancellorship, he has been the founder and Vice Chancellor of different law universities in India, namely National Law University, Bangalore, Nalsar, Hyderabad, National Law University, Delhi. He was the president of the Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute. He's a recipient of Alumnus of Distinction in 2007 conferred upon him by Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, and then the Honorable President of India. Professor N.R. Madhavamenon Best Law Teacher Award 2011, Ambassador for Peace Award for Promoting Peace and Harmony by Universal Peace Federation 2019. Professor M. Pant, former Pro-Vice Chancellor IGNO, who will be joining us online, is an expert in computational physics from IIT Roorkee and an academic of repute. He was the Pro-Vice Chancellor of Indira Gandhi National Open University and faculty at IIT Kanpur and NR Engineering College, Allahabad, and visiting faculty at the University of Western Ontario, Canada. Professor Pant has been associated with many educational organizations as a member of committees or working groups such as AICTE, AIMA, CBSE, CEC, EDC, IL, to name a few. He is now designing and building systems that can meet the challenges of inclusive education of high quality and develop a new paradigm that will help achieve Goal 4 of the UNESCO Sustainable Development Goals. Professor Marmar Mukhopadhyay, Chairman, ETMA. Professor Mukhopadhyay is the Director of Educational Technology and Management Academy, New Delhi. He was a Joint Director and Director in charge of National Institute of Educational Planning and Administration, Chairman of the National Open School, Vice President of the International Council of Distance Education, member of the Steering Committee of the International Multi-Channel Action Group on Education, Washington, topper of Calcutta, Rabindra Bharati University. Mukhopadhyay sir did his postdoctoral study in University of Illinois and London University with an UNDP fellowship. He specializes in educational management, educational and training technology, and open and distant education. A reputed scholar, prolific author, Professor Mukhopadhyay contributed 22 well-researched books, mostly on educational technology and management, with more than 250 book chapters. Professor Amar P. Garg, Vice Chancellor, Shobhit University, is a former professor and founder head Microbiology Department, CCS University, Meerut. He is widely known for his research contributions on protection of human hair and fungal infections using Indian hair oils, new techniques in various microbiological studies, biofertilizers, biobleach process for pulp and paper industry using cellulose-free xylitases that reduces toxic substances in effluents, antimicrobial effects of various herbal preparations, isolation and characterization of lactic acid bacteria from various natural habitats, and evaluation of probiotic potential, to name a few. He is also the visiting scientist as Commonwealth Academic Staff Fellow in UK. He has achieved the DAD Fellow, Germany, National Fellow, UGC. He has participated in more than 24 international conferences abroad, chaired various academic sessions, and represented India in various international conferences. He's been the academic advisor to International Union of Microbiological Studies, received grants from Royal Society London, UNESCO, Japan Research Council, British Council, DAD, DFG, Germany, and several other prestigious foreign scientific bodies. Now, may I request the chairperson for this session to kindly begin with the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Probably we have a very knowledgeable panel with us, and probably we start with the presentation first, or we start with the members, those who are present. What is the order? Pant is already there. Are we starting with Mr. Pant? Each panel member would take about 10 to 15 minutes, and I will, in the end, sum up the deliberations. For some reason, Professor Bhushan Patwardhan could not come, and we were all very keenly looking forward to hear him. He's one of the rare academics, I think, the vanishing class of academics, if I put it. Very few people, those who have the courage to speak the truth. Most of us, unfortunately, don't have the courage to speak the truth. He is one person whom I have found, either he was in the UGC or he went to NAC. He is one person who will always like to speak the truth. But we somehow missed him because of some important incident in the family. So, but we have other equally distinguished panel with us. Can we carry on with the presentation? Please. Dr. M.M. Pant, you can start your presentation.
So thank you. And I'll share my thoughts on technology and personalization. Now, we know that we have always accepted that the best education is a one-on-one, from Socratic dialogue to the Oxford-Cambridge tutorial system to our own Guru Shishya Parampara and the Upanishads. We have generally accepted that the best education is one-on-one. However, the need is to educate more and more people. In fact, to educate everybody. So if you look at the major policy decisions, the UN SDG Goal 4, our right to education in 2009, our NEP 2020, and the new G20 Education Working Group, we are talking about everybody getting education. And in fact, now we're even trying to achieve a gross enrollment ratio in higher education of 50%, and of course, talk of promoting lifelong learning. So what we are really saying is that the education system has to transform from education for the few, the chosen few, to education for everybody. And this is the first challenge. In fact, there's a very famous research paper in 1984 by the famous educationist Benjamin Bloom called the 2 Sigma problem. In that research paper, which is well known and anybody can get it with Google, so on, what he says was that if you do chunking and mastery learning, then the achievement of the students is, as he says, 2 Sigma on the thing, like 98% of the cohort. And he therefore says the challenge to education is how do we have a model of mass education which gives the same level of quality as a one-on-one education. He said this in 1984, and in some sense his hope was that technology will help enable it. We are now at a position where we can see how technology will help enable it, and that is what I would try to say in the next few minutes. Now, the first thing that happens with technology was massification, and therefore the first models were broadcasting models. So basically, we could reach out to a lot more people, and you had MOOCs, for example, from 2008 onwards, and we have our own SWAYAM and everything, and this has led to a large-scale access and reach. So MOOCs, learning management systems, virtual learning environments, all these people are enabling the massification of education. But in addition to massification, we want personalization, because if you have 1 million people who know the same stuff or can do the same stuff or capable of the same thing, that doesn't really help. So the real goal of education is to help everyone achieve their potential. And that is what we mean by personalization of the learning. That we have said, there's lots of discussions now that pure academic learning is not enough. There has to be skill-based learning. There have to be hard skills and soft skills. And the word blended is being used very often. And in a sense, we are saying we have blending of academic and skills, hard and soft, and all this. And therefore, instead of millions of the same type, we create each one as a sui generis. Now, our chair is a person from the law field, and sui generis is a phrase which is often used in law to mean in a class of its own. And we want every human being who's educated to be in a class of one's own, to be able to demonstrate whatever it can to do in the world. Now, I will spend the next few minutes trying to say how this is now possible. In the first phase of computerization, we had massification. And I recommend to all educationists to read the book by Anthony Seldon called The Fourth Education Revolution, where he talks about how AI is going to transform education. And he talks about what are the things that a teacher does in class, what are the things that the students does while learning, and how AI will enable all these things. This book was published in 2018. Then he had a revisited edition because of COVID in 2020, and is a very good account of what's going to happen. What I want to say now is that the method of teaching also has to be changed. See, when medicine, when you look at various things, you have all these medicines, and the big fight is how is the API put in the medical product. API is the active pharmaceutical ingredient. In education, the API is the active pedagogical ingredient. What is the teaching methodology? Is it pedagogy, andragogy, heutagogy, whatever kind of a thing? And in these different modes of learning. And what we now have is a model where we can kind of see something from the medical field, that we first need to have a profile of the person. In medicine, you don't give the same medicine to everybody. You have a kind of a diagnostic to see what is it that needs to be taken care of, and then do it. So we will have a whole field of educational diagnostics, which will try to say what is it that the person needs to know or overcome the ignorance. And then just like the pharmaceutical companies create all these medicines with various APIs, all these educational companies, edtech companies will create products. They will create their MOOCs and they'll create their apps and whatever. And as an educator, we will follow through that, the diagnostics, learning prescriptions, iterate them till we have achieved whatever the learning outcomes are. And finally, the most exciting thing that has happened is the emergence of what is called generative AI, which you have seen in the form of ChatGPT. Now, most people, or as a knee-jerk reaction, have tried to oppose ChatGPT that is talking cheating, not teaching, and so on. But they've forgotten that actually when you use it as a learning tool, it's an amazing thing. Now, some people say they tried something with ChatGPT, it did not give the right answer, and therefore it is no use. Now, ChatGPT is not meant to give a right answer. It is supposed to give an answer which depends upon what it has been trained on, what data has been fed to it, and also and the skill, and I'm very delighted that our chair is a person with extensive law background. Now, dealing with ChatGPT is like going to be in a law court and examining a witness. A witness will not tell you the truth in the very first thing, but you need to examine him and cross-examine him till you achieve and acquire what you want to know. That is what has to be done with ChatGPT. We have to teach the art of examination and cross-examination to be able to get the right answers from ChatGPT. And the name for this is prompt engineering. We all have to learn prompt engineering because what kind of prompts are you going to have? The questions which a lawyer asks are called prompt in the field of AI and generative AI and interactive AI. The kind of prompts you will ask, the sequence of prompts till you get the truth. So it's a very interesting new world, and that's why it's all going towards personalization, whatever your goals are, whatever your themes are. And I think very soon you will see that there will be courses for educators on prompt engineering. And of course, maybe lawyers will come in to teach them the art of cross-examination. It's exciting times for education ahead. So thank you, and I hope this has been somewhat interesting.
Thank you, Dr. Pant, for your valuable contribution to this session. Next, we have Professor Mukhopadhyay, the former director NIPA. You may like to use the podium. Please, sir.
Chairman of the day, Professor Hon'ble Singh, my fellow speaker, Dr. Pant, very old friend, Professor Pankaj Mittal, इनकी invitation की वजह से मैं यहाँ हूँ. I'm standing here because in India I have not seen such a large auditorium. I thought such a large auditorium, whether it is empty or it is full, one should address the auditorium. Geneva में तो मैं देखा है, Geneva बाहर तो बहुत. I'll make 4 points on the role of teachers, and I'm going to caption my topic as transformative policy and transformative teachers. Policy by itself, global experiences, there is always a huge gap between policy intent and policy impact. जो हम सोचते हैं policy में, वो field में नहीं होता है. Because those who frame the policy, their cognitive complexity, it is David Hunt's concept, is very different from those who implement the policy, and policy is implemented in the classrooms by teachers. Next is head of the department, dean, and vice chancellors. Now, this conceptual complexity is widely varying between people who are managing big things, who can think, and people who are operating in the grassroots. First important thing that we learn from our life, all of us have faced, I mean, irrespective of my introduction, my pride of my introduction, I am 60 years actively engaged in education. That's my pride. Having seen the teaching community, all of us can see that there are 3 types of teachers. Teachers who communicate, teachers who influence, and teachers who inspire. There's no data about it. But from the experience, I can say that if you take 1,000 teachers, maybe 990 communicates information, maybe about 7 or 8 influences, and only 1 or 2 inspires. The problem today is that technology can take over the charge for communicating information, because the World Wide Web has got 6 billion pages and is increasing every day. So no teacher knows so much of knowledge. But what it cannot do is influence, and it cannot do inspiring. Dr. Pond talked about ChatGPT. In fact, I use extensively ChatGPT. The other day, I was having a dialogue with ChatGPT. I asked for something, and I realized ChatGPT does not know the full answer. I supplied to it. And it talks like a human being. Thank you very much for giving me this new information. I'll put it in my cognitive store. Now, when you look at this, the communication will be taken over by technology. Nobody can manage. The next important 2 points remains is knowledge can influence, cannot inspire. What inspires is wisdom. And then when Bertrand Russell made this statement, somebody asked, Bertrand Russell said, I know you'll now ask me, what is wisdom? Now it requires Bertrand Russell's wisdom and modesty to say, I may not be able to answer this question, but what I feel is, it's a word concerned partly with knowledge and partly with feeling, affective domain, which comes from Bloom's taxonomy. But it also demands a breadth of feeling, a certain kind of empathy or sympathy. I remember one small incident. A Tamilian young boy came for PhD in Delhi University, and the guide asked him that you see me in the evening at home. He comes in the evening, and Tamilians normally, because of the weather, they put on a shirt and come. So the professor asked, what about your coat? He said, no, sir, I don't need it. Professor went to his room. He brought out his own coat, put it on the student, and she said, you use this coat. Student asked, sir, what about you? He said, oh, I have got 2. This is one, I still have one. This is wisdom. Because the professor realized that in this cold, this Tamilian boy will not be able to concentrate on his studies. So it had nothing to do with this knowledge, it is the wisdom, the sympathy, feeling component, which many of us perceive during our own life as student as well as teacher. When we talk of inspirational, if we talk of transformative education, we need to understand transformative leadership and role of teacher. Here I'll suggest, if you look at Lance Secretan's work on inspirational leader, one of the very important contention is that an inspired person does not need a teacher because he becomes an autopilot mode of development. If some of us are still actively surviving in education, it's because somebody inspired us. They didn't teach us. Knowledge we earned, but they inspired us to collect the knowledge. This is where teacher has to emerge as an inspirational leader. It's a bit metaphysical concept, but that is the concept. Where he leads a team of learners, doesn't teach. That would mean that teacher as a co-learner, which you find in Indian scripture, Acharya Purvarupam, Antevasi Uttararupam, Vidya Sandhi. So teacher is an advanced learner. Student is the team of the learning team, which today you will find Bud Hull's work is called co-creation. Maybe I'll come back to that if I find the time enough. This is where Goleman comes into the picture. Most of the leadership theories are based on cognitive domain. Goleman is known for his emotional intelligence. There are 2 or 3 types. One is democratic leadership, where it is equality. Like, for example, all of you, and in the past myself, we are leader of equals. Because Professor Sauji may be very good in his medical domain, but there are many others who are very good in their own domain. So he is not superior. He is first among the equals. This will be the case with the co-learning situation, because when we talk about technology, we must remember students are far more technology savvy, they are skilled, they have the right attitude compared to their teachers. So first important role that teacher needs to change is not a teacher, but a co-learner with the teacher, with the students. Pace setting is another variety of leadership where teacher proves that I'm better. I remember when I was doing my doctoral work in MS University of Baroda, one day I asked my teacher, very well-known name in Gujarat, that I want to learn the ipsative normative analysis. He said, oh, I don't know. I said, sir, you taught this to so-and-so 3 years ago. Is it? Okay, come to the library at 5 o'clock. We go to the library at 5 o'clock. He picks out the book. He learns it again. And remember, I'm talking of a man of global standing. After he learns, he calls me, come now. Then he taught me. That's pace setting, where teacher does not drive away, organize sickly. And the last is the coaching, where he actually mentors. It is like a cricket team's coach, not like Greg Chappell, who destroyed Indian team. But there are many other coaches who really built up the teams. Coming to the next point, number 2, that is about NEP 2020. NEP 2020 says the teacher must be at the center of fundamental reforms in the education system. This is, I'm quoting from the policy. And Article 23 and 24, it talks about ODL and online integrated education. But I think the other day we were discussing in another meeting in AIU, the concept of digital divide is fairly far below that accuracy. First digital divide is the internet access device. My village is hardly 60 kilometers from Calcutta. I'll be there tomorrow and you can't call me on phone. Oh, you can have ODL somewhere else, but not there. Second is attitudinal divide. Most teachers are not prepared to go into technology. And skill. Students have better skills. Now, coming to this, the teacher's role will now change because AIU and SEMCA are working on a national policy on blended learning, in which I'm also partly involved. It will require curriculum redesign because you have to design blended program, blended course design. Then you have to do instruction design, blended unit design, content generation, and assessment tools. We quote all the time SWAYAM, but I don't know whether SWAYAM content fits in to the quality criteria. I was working with CDAC. They had the similar platform much before SWAYAM, but I suggested please have a filtering process. Let anybody upload, but then you filter it to go to the public access. At the moment, SWAYAM does not have this kind of thing, and there is no evaluation so far. Content curation will be another, which content teacher will curate and tell the students. Learning manager, ensuring that what Dr. Pant was talking about. In fact, if you look at global history, I'm currently doing a study on 12 countries. It was 1965 when President Johnson enacted that everybody must have access to education and not any education. They must perform. That changed in 2001 to NCLB. And 2015, Every Student Succeed Act. So it has a long history, but we have not been able to achieve so far. Facilitator, that is continuous assessment. The other day we had a discussion in one of the universities on continuous. I think even it was there in Aurangabad. Our misgiving is continuous assessment does not help learning. What helps learning is the feedback. Now we can do assessment, but if we don't know how to give the feedback, and that feedback has to be constructive feedback. I've seen many medical doctors who can inspire a patient, patients get better faster, than who can dump a lot of medicine and say, oh, well, I don't know what will happen. My third point, very brief point, we are talking still at the current level, we are not talking about future. Future of education, future of university is universities emerge as a knowledge enterprise. Those who have interest may like to look at Dr. C.R. Mitra's book as Knowledge Enterprise. University must create knowledge. Dispensing universities may not be needed anymore with technology around. That knowledge creation will require knowledge co-creation along with students who will work together. And that is what is emerging as Bard Hall's theory on co-creation. My last point is, at the moment, for example, in the national policy, you will find a word called pedagogy is used as a generic version, whereas a pedagogy means peda is children, science of learning of children. It doesn't work with college students. It doesn't work with college teachers. It doesn't work with vice chancellors. Because they're more knowledgeable, experienced, confident, lot of, breadth. I mean, I was listening to Professor Ranbir Singh's introduction. If I have to teach Professor Ranbir Singh, I have to take care that his huge experience, huge knowledge. What do I do? This is my last point, is that we need to shift from what we call banking model of education. This is Paulo Freire's coinage. Paulo Freire is a very famous Brazilian educator. The contention is that when students come to the class, they have got a blank head. My job is to only fill that bank account. We need to shift from banking model to andragogical model to ensure that we design our instruction the way adults can learn. And first important point of adult learning is equality, because the moment you talk from top to down, adults refuse to learn. Thank you. These are 4 points that I thought I'll share with you.
Thank you, Doctor. After Professor Mukhopadhyay, we have Professor Amar Garg. Please take the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pankaj Mittal, General Secretary, AIU, for giving me an opportunity to speak on this August platform. Very good morning to all. I will focus on few points that what we need to prepare and how we need to prepare the students for the future jobs. Much has been already talked about the higher education during the last 3 days. And if we see, then we will find that we need the vertical education and the vertical literacy instead of this horizontal system what we are having. And the answer we get in the NEP 2020. To clarify more, I will give one example of the Android phones. We are adding every day the apps. And after that, sometime you find that the Android phones, the entire operating system is changed. The change of the entire operating system is the vertical education, what we need to provide to the students to make them socially relevant and globally competent for the jobs. And for that, what we need, that we need to change our syllabus every 6 months, every 1 year. As you see that in 1 year, the entire phone, it becomes obsolete. So the policy what we are having, this is the gross policy, and the universities, the autonomy which has been given to the universities to frame their curricula, academic autonomy, it must be upheld. And it is the vice chancellors, deans of the faculties, the teachers, educators, who are having the great responsibility to change the syllabi as per the needs of the industry, as per the needs of the society, as per the needs of the humanity. Mainly what we need to tackle at present, to my mind, it is that we need to tackle the technological, environmental, and social disruptions, what we are facing today. And if we sum up the entire thing, we will find that the sustainable development is the one of the most important requirements of the present day technologies. Environment and sustainable development, these should be the core of the teaching at the lower level. I was discussing with Professor Ranbir Singh, the chairman of the session, and he is also of the same opinion that up to the 12th class level, we should have at least the legal education compulsory as in case of the environmental education. Well-being, medical education, these should be the basic fundamental aspects the student must learn by 12th class. And from UG and PG, the solution-based education should be introduced. Research-based education should be allowed to facilitate. And in future, what we will find, if we see the biggest discovery on this earth, first is the fire, second is the electricity, and third is going to be the AI, which will change the entire scenario of the entire humanity. Machine learning. And in coming days, we will find that the agriculture, which is providing the 67% jobs in Asian countries or developing countries like India, it will also be a great attraction. So we need to focus on certain job-oriented courses, and which is already provided in the NEP 2020. The agriculture, food industry, pharma industry, medical industry, biotechnology-based industry, the land will be reduced and the bioeconomy will flourish. The green energy, green biotechnology, and you will find that the green or the bioelectricity, biochips, biodiesel, biofuel, and the ethanol production to reduce the consumption of the fossil fuel. These are some of the things where we need to focus and where we need to design and develop our courses for the future needs. And if we see, then we will find that the functional foods, Ayurveda, yoga, this will have herbal medicines. This will have a great future. And we need to prepare the students to find the jobs in these industries. We also need to prepare the students for the next zero carbon emissions and the sustainable development goals. I give one very small example. We are mainly focusing on green biomass. Just a small example. Do we really need it? The thought-provoking, I'm putting this question before all the August body. In fact, 82.4% is the green biomass already on this earth. What we need then? We are not having the problem of the green biomass. The problem lies in the pollution. Problem lies in the dumping of the waste. Problem lies in the recycling of the waste. So the waste to wealth type of the education need to be developed. Such type of the courses need to be developed. Unless we do the recycling and reuse of these all plastic and the e-waste, this will dump. Second example I would like to give, that the most of the people, they say that the waterfall is being reduced and these floods and all these. If we, from my period, before 50 years, we will find before 1970, prior to the industrial era, the rainfall days were 42 to 44. Now the rainfall days have been reduced and the heavy rainfall days have increased. That is leading to the floods. That is leading to the water mismanagement. So we need to develop such type of the courses which really focus on the social problems and the social requirements of the nations. That is the water management. What we are doing, we are pumping out the water from the earth and pouring into the sea. The sea level is rising 1.5 millimeter every year. So we need to tackle this. We need to develop this. Marine biology, we need to develop it. So the biological based system, artificial intelligence based system, machine learning based system, these type of the educations we need to develop. Such type of the courses are required for the younger generation. Now, what I have the idea that we have to change ecosystem awareness to ecosystem awareness. The teaching system as a whole is required to be changed for what that is in the 25th century universities, unity of research, teaching, learning, and proxies of the transforming society is required. And we need to develop such type of the courses. I must thank AIU that they are organizing such type of the activities, discussions, and the more and more discussions on the framing of the curricula at the national level, which are the requirements of the next 20 years, need to be developed. And the more collaboration, more such type of the activities in networking are required. The another very important thing which I would like to point out from this platform, that the vocationalization of the education. We should learn from the Western countries. When I was in 93 in England, that is 30 years before. In 30 years before, each and every street was having the vocational courses institutes. My wife is sitting over here. She was doing the course 30 years ago about the computer science, about the computer literacy. So we have to develop the vocational courses, and these vocational courses should collaborate with the universities, higher education institutions. They all need to come together. They all need to discuss the courses. They all need to discuss the future course of action of the education for the betterment of the jobs and for the betterment of the society. And lastly, I would like to point out and would like to emphasize that we need to develop the graduates, postgraduates, in such a way that they are having socially relevant degrees and globally competitive. Then only we will be able to make Atmanirbhar Bharat. And for that, we all are working very hard, and NEP 2020 is having the answer to many of the problems. And if it is really exactly and truthfully and sincerely, honestly, it is implemented, then I have no doubt that in next 5 to 10 years, the India will be at the top. The one thing is that at present, we are having the competition. And in next 5 years, we will be in the struggling mode. And in next 5 years, we will be in the elimination mode. So only those institutions which will provide the quality education will survive. And we need to focus on the short-term courses. The credit bank system, what the NEP 2020 has developed, this is one of the best model, that those who will perform, they will survive, and those who will not perform, they will be eliminated. The student will get the credit courses from those where the quality is being provided, and then the student will get the degree from the base university wherever he will enroll. So such type of the system, I must congratulate the policy framers, AIU, AICT, UGC, and the government of India, that they have brought a wonderful NEP 2020, and we need to implement it strictly, honestly, sincerely. Thank you very much. Thank you for providing me an opportunity to speak on this August platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Garg. Thank you, Dr. Pankaj, AIU, and the University of USTM. The Vice Chancellors present here, the faculty, the students, ladies and gentlemen. We are talking about transformation. What kind of transformation we seek and why? For the simple reason, are we future ready? And if we ask that question from us, the answer would be no. Somebody asked me, what kind of professionals we need to produce in our institutions? I said, we need to produce professionals in our institutions, those who are technically sound rather, and professionally competent and socially relevant. Technically sound, I mean those who have sound knowledge of interface between technology and law. And we saw that when COVID came. We were all caught unaware. We were not future ready at all. We all failed. We all fumbled. Even best of faculty, we were not knowing how to teach. We said blended learning, but it became very, very difficult to cope up with the difficult times. Then professionally competent. Those skills we were talking about in this country. And lastly, socially relevant. That is not that we produce best of professionals, but people, those who are good human beings. It is very, very important to produce good human beings in our institutions. But the problem is, transformation becomes very, very difficult because of various divides. The divides which we face in our country is, we have a huge knowledge divide. Big cities are different. We live in 6 lakh villages. Our villages are different. There is a skill divide. There is a knowledge divide. There is a technological divide. When COVID came, we found that there is hardly any teaching in the schools in small towns and villages for years. And then there is a geographical divide. And then also ethnic divide. We also have tribal, very, very big tribal population in many, many states. That divide is also there. And we can add on. We can add on like this. There's a very important publication by UNESCO. And that says, we need a new social contract. We need a new social contract for education to repair injustices while transforming the future. We, all of us, we have done a lot of injustices everywhere. And if education has to fulfill the mandate of the social contract, then in that case, we have to undo those injustices. Let me slightly scare you. In the sense, the study further says that because of the disruptions and emerging transformations, they say, here I would like to stress that one of the greatest lessons of my life is to stop believing in the permanence of present. Don't think the present is not going to change. It is going to change. We saw it. Earlier, the change was in millions of years. Then it was in thousands of years. Then it was in hundreds of years. Now it was in 10 years. Now the future is changing every day. Every day we are different. So how readily we transform ourselves is very, very important. And it further says, we can't believe in the permanence of the present, the continuity of the becoming, the predictability of the future. Relentlessly, the short, sudden eruptions of unforeseen come to shake up or transform, sometimes happily, sometimes unhappily, or our individual life, or life as a citizen, the life of our nation, the life of our humanity. And I said, I would like to scare you. The study of the UNESCO again says, the warming of Earth's atmosphere and oceans goes hand in hand. And the situation is so bad. This growth, coupled with the rapid acceleration of consumption of industrial activity, has placed huge demands on resources and often results in environmental stress. Since 1950, human water use has doubled. Food production and consumption have increased by 2.5%, and it has tripled. It is estimated that by 2050, demand for food will rise by 35%, demand for water by 30%, and demand for energy by 50%. Are we ready to meet these challenges as predicted by UNESCO? And that's why when we look into this, we find the future is very scary. Unless the universities, they prepare themselves to meet these challenges, future is going to be very, very difficult. We found what we need to do. We need to have a student-centric, interconnected and striving for better world should be the new focus of all the universities who have to show more empathy to the commitment towards the changing landscape of the country and the student needs. Higher education institutions will now be expected to exceptionally committed and serve the needs of the society and have to especially be careful about some very, very important concerns. I will not be discussing everything because of the paucity of time, but I will bring some low visibility areas into our focus. Diversity is one question we have to grapple with in the future. Inclusiveness. Is our education inclusive? Is our education diverse? Is it accessible to everybody? Is it affordable? Is it equitable? Is there excellence for everybody? We have different layers of excellence for all, all our institutions. Private institutions are different. Government institutions are different. We look at diversity differently. We look at inclusiveness differently. We look at equity differently. But tomorrow when the foreign ministers will come, I don't know how things are going to shape. What is going to happen to all these concerns? I think if our education has to transform, each and every institution has to especially take care of these very, very important factors, which are very, very central to any institution. And formally, I remember two lines in Hindi. And those two lines in Hindi are, घर सजाने की बात तो बहुत दूर की है, देखना ये है कि इस घर को बचाएं कैसे. There are a lot of problems. I think universities have to be very serious in discussing. We can't bury all these problems we face under the carpet. Like I mentioned, diversity, inclusiveness, equity. These will one day erupt, and then below the university system, the business can't be the usual business going on. We have to change. Otherwise, there will be a problem. And let me conclude by what Dostoevsky said, that very beautiful lines by Dostoevsky, that don't think that you are not concerned with the society. And Dostoevsky remarked that everyone is responsible to everyone for everything. Once you have that in mind, probably we will be serious about these things. Thank you very much. We open the discussion with questions for another half an hour. And my request to the Honorable Vice Chancellor, those who ask questions, please try to be as brief as possible. I have been sitting here for all these days. Sometimes I find we start addressing instead of asking questions, because you did not get the platform, unfortunately, and everybody won't get the platform. You can certainly put your point forward, but be as concise as possible. Thank you, so that everybody gets a chance.
Okay. Let me start with the first question is, since the theme is future of education, learning and workplace, let me begin with giving you a perspective of the present state of universities, which is sandwiched between a failed schooling system and an excessively aspirational industry, which wants us to do everything. Now, on one hand, we'll have to actually unburden the failed schooling system as a responsible university, and then also meet the expectations of the industry. Now, the question is, as much as we are sandwiched with this practical issue, there is also another policy issue that is sandwiching universities like us in the middle of a huge implementation problem. Example, let's take online education, about which all of you have spoken about. The edtech companies, which are actually delivering much of the online education, have something that they call as a self-regulatory code, as a result of which they are self-governed. But universities have too much of regulation that we don't really have that much freedom to actually put in place a well-oiled online education. While some institutions, which are institutions of national importance, are outside the ambit of this regulation, and edtech companies have a self-regulatory code. But as universities, I don't know whether we really enjoy that much of freedom to answer the question on how we can prepare future graduates ready for future workplace. Does the panel think that as universities we are empowered enough? If not, how can we make sure that we are adequately empowered to use this disruptive online, or rather I would call it digital, both physical and digital, to make sure that we prepare the learners, the teachers for the future workplace? Are we adequately empowered? If not, how can we be enabled enough?
Thank you very much. Actually, if you see the NEP 2020, it gives the entire flexibility, lot of flexibility to the university to design their course curriculum, to design their method of education, to design their examination, to design their evaluation, everything. What I would like to emphasize here, that Shobit University was the first to introduce this online education and online teaching on 17th March 2020, when this when this COVID-19 was announced on 13th March, I do remember. What we did, we made an experiment that we developed a system that those students who were in the rural areas and the number of the students were few, we asked them to come offline on the online, and then it was a hybrid mode. And now what we are doing with this online courses, MOOCs and the NPTEL and all these courses, we are doing in such a way that we are asking one of the faculty to join the course when the students are watching and learning through these online courses. And then the problems of the students, they are solved then and there on these online courses. So it is making an impact, and the students are getting slowly and slowly, they are getting the interest, and their learning capacity is increasing. So this is what we have been doing at Shobit University Meerut, and this experiment is doing wonderful. This is the one thing. And the NEP 2020 is giving the lot of flexibility, everything that is, and which I talked that the future courses, for example, for every course, the course for every degree, the course will be different as per the needs of the society, as per the needs of the industry. And the vocational courses in tune with the industries, in tune with the society, and in collaboration with the universities are the need of the hour. That is the short-term courses, 3 months course, 6 month course, 10 credits, 12 credits course. And these courses will give lot of opportunities to the students to get the skill-oriented education and to find the jobs. I hope that in the next 10 years, the concept of this four-year degree or 5-year degree or the 6-year degree course will be eliminated. And the most of the people, they will get the credit, They will earn from one university, second university, third university, and then they will come. Maybe that they will not complete the whole degree as a whole. They will have a basket of the credits, and with the basket of the credits, they will go to the industry for the employment. This is what I visualize, which is happening in many of the developed countries. So we have to learn from the Western countries, the Western model of education, which should be tuned to the requirement of the Indian conditions. We are a vast country. We are 140 crore population, and we have the things for the 10 billion population will be in 2050. And we are having the capacities to feed the entire 10 billion population by 2050. As Professor Ranveer Singh was pointing out, that 595 million hectare land will be required to feed this 10 billion population. And the 56% food will be required. So for that, we have to think about it right now, that the biotechnology-based, biomass-based, microbial food-based industries need to be developed. If we see in 1980s, when the China, they came forward, they developed the all biotechnological-based industries. And during the last 30 years, they have become the largest producer of the biomass, largest producer of the several medicines. So we have to go on that massively. Yes. Thank you.
Let me rephrase my question. Are universities having enough regulatory freedom as
Yes.
much as the edtech companies are enjoying? So that's
Yes.
my question.
Yes.
May I respond to this question? There are two things. One, what you are talking about edtech companies, I'm not responding to that. I'm responding to different thing. If the vice chancellors would take care of finding how many circulars have been issued in last 1 year by UGC, you'll find it is one of the world record. And many of the circulars have no meaning because vice chancellors understand the problem. This is one point. My second point is very important, and I'm talking as a student of management science, having studied, researched. Please notice, same university changes with the change of the vice chancellor. Power is not given, power is taken. How do you exercise the power? There is something, a concept called Marshall and analysis. You have got a small power, but many of us, we don't explore how much power is there possible. So my submission would be, every one of us who work in a system, we work under certain constraints. Those who succeed, like Dr. Ranveer Singh, or for example, Dr. Mittal, the way she has been working in AIU, doesn't mean that she doesn't have constraints. How you overcome the constraint is your story of success. You can't compare with edtech companies, but let me also tell you, if you look at 2019 UK Act, it has asked edtech companies to collaborate with the government because whether it is Coursera or Future Learn or edX, they are competent people. We don't need to isolate universities. We need to collaborate universities with every other knowledge system. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, as looking forward to the session, future of education, because that's what we're here for, that how the leadership can provide the direction for the future. And to me, I think technology is pervasive. Technology is here. And I think sooner we adapt to the technologies, it is better for us. Having said that, Professor Marmar Mukhopadhyay just said that when he goes to his village, he is out of bounds. He cannot be reached. And so, I mean, we are saying one thing, that technology is the solution. Technology would be, I think, answer to many of our problems, but not able to address some of the fundamental issues. And that is one of the concerns which is there. And of course, I think we got a lot of insights as to how we need to be working together. I mean, as a changing role of the teachers, changing roles of the students. And that's something the leadership, we are all, I think, vice chancellors of the universities, and the leadership needs to be proactive. Leadership needs to be well versed with the technological advances. And then if that's there, then only we will be able to bring in the desired change. So I think two things fundamentally, we need to update ourselves with the technology, and we should be looking at both the hardware as well as the software part. Thank you very much.
Sir, namaskar. I am Vishnukant from the Rural Development University. Now, the points that were discussed were more related to the conventional and the universities at the corporate cities. But now there are several universities spread over in the hilly areas and rural areas. And there are universities which are field oriented, such as agriculture, horticulture, veterinary, and several universities. So in this situation where the ground reality is on practical orientation, how technology will be able to enable these kind of universities in the rural and hilly areas where the present situation is not conducive at all for technology support. So what would be the future of such institutions wherein in the rural areas? This is my questions.
So I have a question. I'm Dr. Anil Lagat. I want to say that the way higher education is heading up towards that under the new education policy 20, I say that sustainability must be attached with the rational and dynamic sustainable education in India. If this rational and dynamic word are attached, then the lot many problems are solved, because we cannot stay. We cannot be static to any system or education. We have to make a change. Of course, there is a need of coordination between the school supply and the university receive, because that matters quality aspect of output of the universities. So what are the schemes of the government in this respect? Because if the supply side, which is the schooling side, does not provide that level of students. Now, rational, the challenges before the universities are different, and they would be always be different. So looking country as a whole, we should have a picture as a whole in a holistic manner. And this holistic manner cannot be justified if we fail to cope up with this balance, coordination between the universities which are receiving at the remote areas, students from remote area. Their challenges are different than the challenges before the universities in urban areas. The ability, potential, and facilities to enroll students are, of course, very. So that is what is my submission is. Is there any vision for this also or not with the higher authorities in the higher education?
So could I first thank the panel for this exciting presentation? I have three quick points for submission. One is, sir, whenever we speak of research and excellence, or whenever we speak of the future of higher education in the country, we seem to be terribly biased in the discussions of, and we are biased for technology and science education, or even engineering education. But sir, there's a whole spectrum of knowledge outside technology, outside science and science. We are neglecting social sciences, humanities, literature in our discussion. But the new education policy constantly harps on the importance of interdisciplinary research, bringing social science and sciences together. This has not happened in our country. We have not been able to produce a person like J.D. Barnard. There have been tremendous development of Indian science and technology. We need to understand the parameters and the contours of this development via colonial regime to the post-colonial regime. That has not been done. And I think that should be a very important agenda of any discussion on the future of higher education in our country, bringing social sciences and scientists and technologies together, and not remain and confine ourselves only on science and technology. Second, sir, I might be wrong, but I think one of the greatest flaws of the higher education planning in our country, Professor Morma Mukhopadhyay may bear me out, the absence of conjunction between scientific research institutions and the universities. That has to be bridged. If we want to make a fundamental breakthrough in our scientific research, unless we bring the universities and the well-funded central research institutes together, we cannot produce. Look at the list of Nobel laureates. Most of them are from the universities. So that is another item that needs to be focused upon when we discuss the importance of the various contours in the development of higher education in the country. The final point is that we are talking about the university industry tech partnership program. Of course, it's very important. Till the other day, the universities were accused that we are not involved in the industry. But now the pattern has changed. But have we ever undertaken research to understand what is the contribution of our industries in the R&D program? In the total R&D program, in the terms of the GDP, the expenditure R&D has not even touched 1%. And within that 1%, what is the percentage that the industries contribute? I give you one little example and end. During the pandemic, there were a lot of innovations that came about. As in other aspects of world history, pandemic had also silver lining. In many ways, it brought out the creativity of the students and the teachers. They held their hands together to do a lot of innovations, hackathons, etc. In Jadavpur University, a group of students in collaboration with the faculty members did a wonderful thing in developing a design of an instrument which could be used by the police and other law enforcement agencies to find out how many people in a gathering were wearing a mask. They won the hackathon. I made an appeal to each and every chambers of commerce in Bengal to help us in patenting that. No response. On the other hand, an American university came to know of that particular model and they sought my permission and they patented it. So I can give a number of examples to show there is still an apathy on the part of the industries to come out of their earlier syndrome and join hands with the universities to make the university industry partnership program a dynamic process. I think we should urge the government to issue a certain directive or whatever regulation, whatever the term you use, to ask the industries to spend a considerable part of the CSR program in funding educational researches. So those were the 3 points I wanted to make. Thank you.
Let me share one thing with you. The great Dr. Ambedkar Saab said, whatever kind of good constitution you may give, ultimately the people, those who implement will make a difference. Whatever kind of bad constitution you may give, the kind of people are good, they will change the entire scene. The success story of any university is the visionary vice chancellor and the leadership issue. NEP or no NEP, government or no government. If the vice chancellor is a visionary vice chancellorship and has got a lot of leadership issues, I have seen vice chancellors, those who have done a fantastic job even in the remotest of areas without any help from anybody. But that's $1 million question. And we are talking too much of industry. We never used to talk about industry. We were much better, I tell you. We were much better in India when we were not talking. See, in USA, sir, you have the experience. It is all sponsored research, not community-based. It has no connect with the community at all. Are the universities should be totally disconnected with the communities and the samaj which we come from? We have an obligation to pay back to the community from which we come. That is our first duty. Then rest is all right. I think we have still 10 minutes, 11 o'clock. So we can have one or two questions. Yes, please.
One more question.
Please use the mic.
Future of workplaces. What is our take on to this particular challenge which we'll be facing, because the workplace will undergo the change. We are talking about education, learning, though to me they are the same only. But what is the workplace and ultimately what is going to the future of the society as with all changes we are talking about?
Yeah. There's a war on all fronts. Everybody has to fight their own battle.
Okay, that's survival of the fittest, which we normally call as jungle raj, not a civilized society.
Certainly. It has been ever happening. It will always happen. It will happen in future also.
So let's more prepare and more advocate about that particular
It's,
requirement as
no,
such.
no, it is ultimately on you. If you want to perform, everything is fine.
Yeah.
If you don't want to perform, nothing will happen.
Nee, there are two sides, no, sir. People talk about Jungle Raj, which is a survival of the fittest. The more of a refined social obligation is let's ensure the survival of the weakest. That's more civilized way.
I have just 3 points. An issue was raised about failed school system, and that is affecting university system. Having been a member of the working committee of planning commission from 6th plan to 11th plan, let me say school education section is the most deprived section. Primary education is the primary concern of politicians. Higher education is the higher concern of politicians. And secondary education is absolutely no concern. In many committees, when we fought for it, 2006-5, you may remember, government constituted 3 committees. I was chairing the secondary education. Dr. Tilak was in the higher education, etc. How the 6% will be divided was a big question. Higher education has a better voice. It always hijacks the resources. So if school education has failed, it is not because school education is not good. It is because we have not, remember, higher education produces the teacher for the school education. School quality depends upon the teacher, which is produced by higher education. I'll request you to look at a paper by Dr. Armaiti Desai, a very famous intellectual chairperson of UGC, on interstructural linkages. We have seen school education, higher education, technical education as 3 step-brothers. They are not step-brothers. Everyone is dependent on one another. This is one point. The other point which about the rural education, since I come from the rural area and I work with them, so what I do is I try to find out alternative technology. For example, let me tell you, being involved in policy making of this country, policy does not make any change at all. What changes is how the policy is implemented. Policy is a very good book of poetry. It's a romantic poetry. It does not change. Change happens when it starts working. And that working requires a lot of human expertise, financial resource. Most of you must be finding that your research grant is actually shrinking. My last point about Professor Suranjan Das' point. Professor Das, I remember 1980, I lectured on industry education collaboration. 43 years ago, nothing has changed. So once an IIT professor asked Maruti Suzuki, they wanted to have robotic installation for Maruti production. So the professor said, and the chairman manager is an IIT product. He said, yes, we can teach you. He said, sorry, I don't want teaching. I want somebody to come to my shop floor and do the installation with my worker. Problem today in education, we have so much of theoretical knowledge, but so little practical knowledge. We can't install robots. That's exactly, Professor Das did not mention it probably. If you look at US federal government's grants to research, in fact, entire US research glory is because of federal grant. Whereas when I was in the FICCI committee, UGC said, no, we will not give to private university because they're commercial. I said, bhai, agar wo kharab kar raha hai desh ko, usko theek karne ka rasta to dikhao. Why can't you give grants on research basis, research grant? Don't give maintenance grant. I think there is something grossly wrong in our understanding of higher education. 57% of students in higher education are serviced by private universities. हम लोग कितने भी हमारी घमंड दिखाएं, fact is 57% of private university students. हम इनको क्यों ना research के grant दे? And again, my last point, being a member of planning commission's working committee for several, let me tell you, India does not run short of fund. It has enough fund. There is a member, something called financial advisor, the Minister of Education, whose job is to cut money and send it back to the finance department. And then say, education department cannot spend money. And during my tenure as head of 2 national institutions, I had to fight. I said, why are you saying we are, आप पहले काट करते हो? आप लोग higher education को, when the higher education grant came, Sanction was 82,000 crore. आपको शायद पता होगा, ultimately it came down to 40,000 crore. Nowhere in paper. Paper में 82,000 crore है. This 40,000 crore, by the time it was distributed to all of you, it came down to hardly about 25 crores, 25,000 crores. We need to seek. The government must learn to act what they talk, which is not happening. Thank you.
So, yes. So first of all, thanks to the chair and the panel. We have a lot of learning, and especially when the people from Planning Commission who was there for a long time sitting here. From quite some time, I'm living with this thought, and I try to put up in the committees. One is that in 2018, we discussed about, when Javadekar was the Minister of Education, we discussed about changing I'm a student of strategy, Vice Chancellor of the Assam Royal Global University. So I'll talk on those because it is transformative. So it is very close to my heart. And I think a lot of things have come with respect to school education. You also said, we are trying to understand that why not higher education in totality should shift, transform itself from grant-based education to self-sustained education. Why I'm telling this, because all the models across the world, few months back in Pune, we have 5 public universities of the United States of America. Their funding is, as the panelist has said, their funding is limited to research and some innovative grants. The rest they have to accrue on their own. The model in USA and other places, education being sponsored by state, if at all, or by loan through students going to the question arises when we had a discussion that the students are not going to the class and teachers are not going to the class and delivering it. So the question came, the relationship between student and the teacher in the university is only of 2,500 rupees fees they pay. But actual subsidized education come to 1 lakh of rupees or 2 lakh of rupees. Neither that the student knows about it in public sector universities and not teacher give heed to it. So ultimate relationship becomes so very thin that the quality and the presence in the class comes down. This is one aspect that I have. Now in this scenario, why not gradually, I'm taking the outliers away. Outliers means remote areas, village areas, gradually. Why not just take all the money being funded to only school education, because many country has done that. Unless and until school education is going to be strong, you agreed, panel agreed that we don't have that good education. I think higher education will automatically flourish. So that is my request. And if at all something can be done in this regard. Thank you so much.
Professor Raghuveer Singh from Tirthankar Mahavir University. They're just saying that you can infer the understanding of a person from his or her actions. So taking up your own discussions on a number of guidelines which have been circulated by UGC. The question is whether they understand quality of education. Right. Now, if you look at these guidelines, all of them relates to structural changes. Structural changes have got nothing to do with quality. It can only facilitate. So are they behaving like an electric current, wherein you take easiest path to quality, so-called quality changes, which might happen because of these guidelines. Another one is doing where it matters most, that's in the classroom. You know, the 3 important elements of quality are people, that is faculty, student, and process. None of this has been actually touched. None of it has been actually worked on ground realities. Unless you work with this, quality will not improve. So that's where I want to have your take on. Is it a poor understanding or it's a deliberate action? Thank you.
Thank you. Here we wind up the session with this. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pankaj. Thank you very much, the university.
Sir, one more question.
Now it's over now. The session is closed.
Sir, one more question.
Session is closed.
So,
it is not a lengthy question. I wanted to know,
Even if
somewhere I read 90%.
We will talk personally when I come here.
No, 10 seconds, sir.
No, it's
not a
closed.
lengthy question. Yes.
Session is closed.
Okay, then, fine. It's all right.
I, on behalf of AIU and USTM, thank all the panelists for this session. Now we'll begin with the AIU General and Business session. I request the Honorable Vice Chancellors only to be seated in the auditorium. Rest can kindly move to have their tea. Only the Honorable Vice Chancellors are requested to be present for this session. The rest of the members can kindly proceed for the tea.